Hey guys, and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow, and it is finally time. 1.0 Last Epoch is here, the full release, and with that, a lot of new players are jumping in. You've got the new Masteries to pick, the visual updates, the balance patch, and more. This is the version that they want us to take seriously, and hopefully the most people are going to try. With that, a lot of people might be wondering what class they should play, or specifically, what's the best mastery for the one that I'm interested in. Masteries are your true class, the subclass of the original you pick. You'll look at 5 classes, the Mage, Rogue, Sentinel, Acolyte, and Primalist, and then early on during leveling of one of those, you pick one of their 3 mastery options to finalize that choice. So you'll need to work out what class and then what mastery you're going to play. Any and all masteries are going to work well in this game. They can clear everything, but the point of this video is to talk about what seems to be the best universal pick for each class in the launch version. If you're unaware, patch 1.0 did change some things. It's introduced those new masteries, the Falconer for the Rogue and the Warlock for the Acolyte, and it's also created new build options like Tempest Strike for Primalist, or say Paladin with the new healing hands. So between all of that, there seems to be some new potential meta for builds. Let's start with a straightforward one then, the Mage, and its overall best looking mastery, the Runemaster. This mastery is all about weaving the chaos of runes into different potent spells. As a more recent mastery, you can tell it's pretty fresh in the mechanics. You're weaving 3 potential runes in a specific order, resulting in a different reaction. Boasting 40 potential invocations, it reminds me a lot of Invoker in Dota 2 if you've played that. You gain runes based on what abilities you're using, and the order that they're sent out will result in a different invocation. Certainly one of the most mechanical masteries you'll find in the game. The Runemaster currently boasts builds around their Hydra Constructs, Plasma Orbs, the Frostbite and Frostclaw, and more. And surprisingly, these things have not been nerfed in a way that, a lot of people seem to expect. So it's going to continue to dominate, say, speed clear, so fantastic for leveling, and performing universally very well in all content. It's one of those picks that's just going to be good at everything. There's things like, say, the Flame Ward spell that just is an ultra tanky reliable shield, or the Frost Wall, which is an AoE potential CC. They even have really good mobility with Flame Rush, giving you kind of reliable dash. And overall, while Mage has, great options in its 3 masteries like the Sorcerer or the Spellblade, I think for mechanical fun and raw power, Runemaster is the one that I would suggest most, taking that top spot in 1.0. Next up though, let's talk Rogue, which is looking incredible at launch. Rogue has its new mastery, the Falconer, which is rated so high across the board that it's actually expected as maybe this class's top pick for each type of content. Despite that, I also want to reference the other masteries, which are really good. Firstly, Bladedancer is a popular pick for raw leveling, rushing your way through the endgame and beyond ASAP. It very well could be the best mastery using Shadow Daggers in particular for that purpose. It's super fast and super effective at clearing out mobs while moving through them. But it does seem overshadowed in the true endgame in theory by the Marksman mastery and that ability to clear reliably from range, considering say the squishier nature of a rogue. It makes for more reliable corruption pushing, and it's also really good in single target. So all of that's great and worth thinking about, but man, the Falconer is seeming a little too good at launch. It's the new mastery where you're sort of a tactician fighting alongside a Falcon companion. While you attack, the Falcon attacks. You set up traps and fight directly, or even combine forces and attack at the same time together. The raw uptime and speed of the class seems ridiculous, and with the fantastic mobility it has, you're always where you need to be in the fight. Between the top tier boss DPS, extremely good mob clear, you're not really weak anywhere as this mastery. And based on the feedback of a few of the closed test players, it's actually expected to be nerfed with how well it's performing. If they did nerf it in a fair way, I still think it would remain a well-rounded, super fast and effective pick that will appeal really well to the class fantasy. But if not nerfed in any way, it could remain one of the strongest things in the game overall, certainly with this original 1.0 version. So it's going to be an interesting one for me to watch to see, how the devs are going to tackle something might be a little bit too strong originally. Moving forward then, we have the Sentinel, which is actually the class I'm feeling the most going into 1.0. The Sentinel picks between the Forge Guard, the Paladin, and the Void Knight. This one's got me split 2 ways though. While the Forge Guard is a beloved pick by some, the Paladin and the Void Knight are both more popular and for good reason. The Void Knight is a Sentinel who has basically taken the Void into himself, using the power against the enemy. So you got these huge Void spins and swings, beams, trails of Void. It's basically explosive purple. It features some really cool time messing stuff like echoing out extra copies of your attacks, reversing your position back in time, which could restore your health and mana. Outside of its cool concept, it is popular for its extremely simple and AoE effective gameplay with, say, the spinning Warpath build or the awesome melee fighter, which is great in single target. I do think this is going to be a great pick if you're looking for a more simple, effective playstyle that's also going to be great for a new player. But I think I'm going to pick Paladin overall here, and for good reason. Before 1.0, the Paladin has loads of different builds for different types of content. If you're doing corruption, you could do hammer spam or holy trail javelin, lean into smite. Maybe for single target, you'd lean into the different bleed builds. There's also the Nova builds, which can dumpster the entire screen. It's fitting that vengeance-filled Paladin class fantasy while being really strong. But what I'm particularly interested in is the new healing hands that's getting a skill tree to properly try out now. Those playing the closed test have had extremely good things to say about it. It might just sound like a heal. You heal allies in a target area and then a heal over time occurs. It's nice, but not an offensive ability. That's not actually how Paladin works in this game. Those types of attacks are also going to cleanse evil, dealing damage. Using the cleric's hammer passive, melee attacks might trigger a healing hands, turning it into a burst of healing and healing over time, but also a burst of damage and damage over time. You get to double dip with the damage of melee attacks or skills and getting a healing procced all at once. Or you could double dip at range instead. With the Hand of Aurelius, you could smite to trigger a healing hands around the smite target location at range. You could make it so divine bolts fly out when you directly use the spell, turn it into a traversal so it charges, or say make it a channeled version with the sky beam. Basically, healing hands looks like an incredibly versatile skill that could be the center of many different builds that could be top tier picks for Paladin. There's a lot of testing to be done, but Paladin was already versatile and awesome with lots of top tier builds, and now it just feels like it's getting a bunch more. So I plan to test that out and come back with videos all about it. Moving on though, let's now talk about the Acolyte, who had the other new mastery in 1.0, the Warlock. Acolyte was pretty impressively balanced between the Lich and Necromancer, and so far Warlock's looking insane too. I will say that Necromancer is an extremely popular class fantasy, and it is one of the more popular things in this game, summoning powerful undead and allies to decimate your foes with tools made from the dead. Basically, minions of many different kinds for different purposes. Also, with how, undeniably pathetic the Diablo 4 Necromancer's fantasy for that was, I think a lot of people have come into Last Epoch looking to scratch that itch, so Necromancer's been popular for that reason. But popular doesn't always mean best, raw power does, and yes, the minion Necromancer definitely has power. Explosive Wraith is a very popular pick, both for tough corruption pushing and single target fights, because this is a raw DPS. You've got the volatile zombies, the flame wraiths, with incredible AoE. With the minions being the source of the damage, you can kind of control the fight by maintaining buffs on them, while moving away from the danger yourself. But of course, I'm going to have to highlight the Warlock as a very hopeful addition at launch. They're introducing a new mechanic with 5 new curses to the game, spreading different effects to the target, creating lots of different builds and setups that are going to synergize with one or a few of these at once. From the closed test, builds like Torment or Bleed are actually said to be very promising in power, centering a lot around damage over time. It's also looking like Warlock is going to be a top leveling mastery for Acolyte, which could be very good for new players. So yeah, I actually find Acolyte one of the harder classes to say this mastery is looking the best right now, because they're all really reliable and solid. It's going to be interesting to see how Warlock stands up at launch once we get some real testing behind it, but I would assume a lot of people are going to be interested in Necromancer, and I will say it's very good. Finally, we have the last class to cover, the Primalist. This one was looking like Druid to me, whether that was, say, speed farming or the onslaught of waves found in the arena. There's a lot of builds that shine for Druid for a selection of content. One of the most important things to do in the endgame is, push corruption. Having the ability to do that is important, and Druid has that on lock pre-launch. It's also a fan favorite class fantasy, much like, say, Necromancer or Paladin, so that definitely pushes the popularity in the game. So if that's you, you can safely bet on Druid being a strong and fun option in the game. But there's some exciting changes and details that came with the 1.0 patch notes. The new reworks for Tempest Strike and Gathering Storm are going to be very relevant, but also things like the big improvements to Summon Wolves, which was already a great build concept in regards to the Beastmaster. So between those, you're going to have a hard time finding better single target killers. It's only really got stronger. With the new Tempest Strike, there's ridiculous melee build potential too, with the ultra attack speed you can reach. Despite its high potential, it's something I've not seen talked about so much with the closed test, so I do think there's more testing and discovery to be done there. In short though, I think Druid is going to be a classic, popular, fantastic pick. It's going to fill that class fantasy. But Beastmaster is looking really high in potential and could dominate too. But yeah, that brings me to the end of this overview for the Masteries. I am a new player who's been learning the game recently, and I've done a lot of research around that. I've been trying to make content, catered to fellow new players who can benefit from this, but I hope I've given a fair overview with context to the current state of things. If you guys have been playing for a long time, you have any extra thoughts or information, drop it in the comments. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and see you in Last Epoch.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.